So we turn to an expert, a man who hosts the Locked On Canes podcast. You can hear me on WQAM on the Canes postgame show. He is Alex Donno, a Canes lifer, joining us on the Toyota of Hollywood guest line. Shop over 2,000 Toyotas on sale at one location at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan, toyotaofhollywood.com. Donno, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Tobin, and I'm also petty. You and I have a lot in common in that area, so seeing Jimmy bounce brought a smile to my face, and seeing the Florida Panthers not only beat Toronto last night, but they took their souls. Like, the Maple Leafs were completely lifeless throughout that entire game, and man, 6-1. I hope we beat those fools 8-0 tomorrow night in the elimination game.
Well, Donno, it could have been 6-0 the game beforehand. Yeah. I mean, they just got some stellar goalie play. So that's kind of what happened. And there's a reason why he's your backup goalie. Let's be clear that he has moments, but he's not going to play on a consistent basis night in and night out.
Yeah, no, that's true. And hopefully he's so shell-shocked after giving up 6 goals the other night that he'll give up 36 next time.
So, Donno, we're very excited this week. Your boots on the ground with everything with the Canes and all that. Jackson Cantwell, top recruit. I'm following your Twitter account as this is all going, and I can't believe the belly aching that is going on because the Miami Hurricanes landed a good player. Can you take us a little bit into the drama of this? The Canes land this stud, and like all hell breaks loose with other team fan bases whining because the Miami Hurricanes got him.
Yeah, I mean, in Miami, as other schools have, but Miami has been recruiting Jackson Cantwell literally for over a year, if not multiple years. So it's not as if, they woke up a couple days ago or a couple months ago and said, okay, we need to have this guy. Let's offer him a few million or something like that. So, and there were times, even a month ago when people thought, hey, Miami is the prohibitive favorite to land Cantwell, who's a behemoth offensive tackle, 6'8", 325 pounds. He's the top player in the class of 2026. And so like there was a time about a month ago when it looked like this is going to be a Miami player, right? But then, as things often do when you follow recruiting for high school kids, the trends seem to be changing, right? There was a time, it looks like Oregon's the favorite. And then for a couple weeks before his actual announcement, it looked like Georgia was the big favorite. But then like a couple hours before he announced, he started to get the leaks that, hey, it's probably going to be Miami. And he did indeed choose Miami. And so it's one of these belly aches that have become, and complaints that have become more and more common in this day and age in college football. And you especially hear this a lot from SEC fans. And it's ironic because NIL was kind of a thing in the SEC before it was legal. And now that the level, that the playing field has been leveled a little bit, they don't seem to like it. The teams can legally drop bags to land players. And so, yeah, from the moment Jackson Cantwell picked Miami, there became an argument very loud from the Georgia fans and from certain national media members. The narrative became, well, he clearly picked Miami for the money, that this was a money move. He chose the bag. And Tobin and Leroy, I'm not saying Miami didn't give him a great monetary offer. I'm sure they did. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because when it's legal, you pay what you can to get the best possible players to your program. But I can also tell you, with what I know about Jackson Cantwell, this guy is not going to make a decision strictly based on that, the relationships he's been developing for months, if not years, with Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal. And he was going to be a millionaire wherever he went, right? So he decided to take the proven offensive line coaching, the comfort level he had with Miami, who he had mentioned throughout his process. He didn't hear from anybody more than he heard from Mario Cristobal, head coach, who's kind of your second offensive line coach, and Alex Mirabal, the offensive line coach. And I guess it didn't help that On3 Sports published a story late last week where they mentioned, Miami, we heard, is offering him, $2 million or north of $2 million. They didn't mention any numbers for any other school. So it already kind of planted that money narrative. And so I think the problem that people on the Miami side have with this narrative, and the problem that Jackson Cantwell should have with this narrative, is anytime Miami lands a big time player, they always throw out there, look at this big NIL offer. It's all about money, money, money when Miami lands a player. Had Had Oregon, who also bought Oregon is probably the biggest NIL spender, by the way, or Georgia landed him, it would have been, oh, he chose this great program. He's going to play for Kirby Smart or Dan Lanning. So I think that's the issue people have is anytime Miami lands somebody, it's all about money. And then the last thing I'll say before I'll let you ask me another question, I've been ranting and raving for a while here, but the last thing I'll say on this is if you're going to bring up this narrative that Jackson Cantwell would only choose Miami for an NIL offer, I could at least halfway entertain that argument if this guy played any other position. But you're talking about an offensive lineman who wants to be developed by the guys who developed Penei Sewell and the guys who are currently developing CeCe Maui Noah, who has a chance to be a first-round draft pick next year. If he played any other position, I could at least allow you to carry on this money narrative. But for an offensive lineman who says he sees himself best fitting in Miami, I don't know why you would argue that considering the type of O-line coaching Miami has.
I can tell you why, Donno. And here's what it is with the SEC. For so long, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson could sit at a kid's table and put their rings on the table, right? And say that what you're getting when you come here are all these excellent things, right? But keep in mind, when Nick Saban left, he said, we don't have enough money. They have it. They're just not putting it out there. And now you have these other schools that are saying, oh, we acknowledge your rings and we can't use that. How about an extra $1 million? And they have a problem with that because for so long, their dominance over the sport was, I'm going to just put my rings on the table. And now they can't do that. Now you can't go in to a kid's house and only talk about your storied franchise or your storied history. Because to be honest with you, kids don't give a damn about that.
Yeah.
And they have a problem with that. That's why more schools like LSU, who have a good program, but they can't be throwing it around like Alabama or Clemson or Georgia, right? You have schools like Ole Miss throwing money at it, right? So it's not just Miami, but it fits because it's one of the guys they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that. And, I know it's something that Cantwell talked about. He even actually, which I thought was kind of saucy on his part, he was doing some interviews right after he made his announcement. And he even he brought up Pete Nakos of On3 by name. He called him out because that was someone who wrote an article late last week who was like, oh, well, Miami's offering him $2 million. And he says players often commit to Georgia for the Georgia discount. It's so noble to go to Georgia for less money. Right. So it's yeah. I don't know how much money Georgia offered. I don't even know how much money Miami offered. It's all rumors and hearsay, right? Because they don't publish the NIL numbers. But so if Georgia, hypothetically, because a lot of Georgia fans are saying this, if Georgia offered Jackson Cantwell literally half of what Miami offered, you're really going to shame the young man for choosing to make double the money at a place where he knows he can get developed. It's I mean, Leroy, if you were a free agent in the job market, and you were offered $500,000 to do one job and then a full $1 million at the other, and you were going to be happy at either spot. Should they shame you for choosing to make the $1 million over the $500,000? I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous.
That's the thing I'm talking about, Donno. They're sitting here talking oh, how dare you turn down Georgia no matter what we offer you? It's Georgia, right?
Is it true, Donno? Is it true they knocked him down the rankings after this happened? That's that's the thing that people did.
Well, here's the thing, man, and I had some because factually, yes, that did happen, Tobin. To be fair, because I upset some people when I was angrily tweeting about this last night. He was, yes, they updated the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings yesterday, the day after Cantwell committed. And he dropped, I guess he was number 3 overall on that service, and they dropped him from 3 to 10. And I don't think anything's changed. He hasn't played football in 5 or 6 months. So I don't know how they just decide to drop him. But I was ranting about it, and I was told, and I'm going to assume this is factually correct, that they actually filed this change. It just didn't come into effect till yesterday. This change was filed several days before he committed. So even if he had committed to Georgia or Oregon, he still would have dropped 7 spots. Now, obviously,
sounds convenient.
I got my tinfoil hat with me because it is convenient. Because I got this us against the world mentality when it comes to Miami. Like, it's very convenient how every time Miami lands a 5-star player, they knock him down a peg. But supposedly this one is just an awful coincidence.
All right. If they say so. Well, here's another one that got kind of crazy this summer because it was cool. We saw Carson Beck starting to throw, so that's good news. So, but like he signs with the Canes naturally after they get the number 1 quarterback drafted. Another crazy decision that he would make. But then all of a sudden, everybody's belly aching about how much the Canes paid him, and they're like, "Oh, he ruined the market for everybody. Tennessee's quarterback is leaving," and I'm like, "How in God's name is that the Canes' fault?" I'm trying to figure this stuff out, Donno.
I mean, because again, people the same way. Back to Leroy's point, like people just cannot believe a player would choose Miami over Georgia. Carson Beck already did that. And I know like there's a lot of narrative changing happening in Athens where Georgia fans will say, "Oh, this guy, he sucks. We never actually wanted him to play for us again. He's terrible. Gunnar Stockton, that's the truth. Carson Beck, old damaged goods. We don't want him here." That's the narrative there now. My understanding is like
they didn't want him.
Not, including Kirby Smart, did not want him to leave. Like Kirby Smart did not want Beck to leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And but again, whether they wanted him to leave or not, the idea of going from Georgia to Miami, people can't believe it. They can't fathom it. And then you throw in the NIL, the alleged NIL money as well. And yeah, listen, as far as Carson Beck goes, it's just unfortunate him coming off of that injury. He's healthy now, but with him coming off of the elbow injury, he wasn't able to participate in spring football fully. Like he was out there, he just wasn't able to throw, which is a pretty big part of what he does, but he was out there working and stuff. But I've seen him throw in person. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet because he hasn't been available to the media because he was injured. But he is throwing now. He's been cleared to throw for the past several weeks. And my understanding, I've heard that they're going to start having the player run practices on Monday. So he's going to be able to be throwing with his teammates in the next couple of days. And, Cam Ward is special and irreplaceable, but I think Miami going out and getting somebody like Carson Beck with his experience level, his proven production on the field, I think is a really good move. And, I don't necessarily think Miami's going to have the number 1 offense in the country again, but if the defense is no longer embarrassing,
I was gonna follow up with that, Donald. Like, give us a big picture, your thoughts before we even get to camp. Do you feel like it's fixed? Because man, that was so frustrating by the end of last year to be spotted a 21-0 lead and feel like you have no hope. Do you feel like they've done enough, hopefully, to plug some of this up?
I mean, I don't know how much else they could have done, like in terms of offseason moves, right? I mean, they changed defensive coordinators because it was clearly not working under Lance Guidry last year. I like the guy that they hired, Corey Heatherman, who kind of worked a miracle in Minnesota last year. They were 69th in total defense before he took over. Then he got them into the top 10 in just 1 year last year. And a lot more aggressive and a lot more direct, like his defensive philosophy. The players seem to like it. Miami's players who were, learning the system during spring football. So I think the defensive scheme is going to suit them better. So that's one thing. And then, Miami went wild in the transfer portal when it came to trying to bring in new players. Like the only position group that they just weren't able to get too much in because there wasn't a lot of quality available is defensive tackle. They did get one pretty good player back in the first transfer portal window, David Blay from Louisiana Tech, who had a couple good seasons there and had a good spring with Miami. But so many new faces in the defensive secondary. And I think Xavier Lucas from Wisconsin, a cornerback, Zechariah Poyser, a safety from Jacksonville State, who was a stud there the last couple of years. And I also like the safety from Tennessee, Jacoby Thomas, that they brought in, and Keontae Scott, a nickel from Houston. And a lot of the players they're bringing in were coached in previous spots by Miami defensive coaches, like where they were before. including, I think one of the guys who could make a really big impact is linebacker Mohamed Touré from Rutgers, who was coached because Corey Heatherman, who's the new DC 2 years ago, he was the linebackers coach at Rutgers, and Touré had his best season then under Heatherman. So honestly, if the defense isn't like dramatically better, and you don't set a very high bar from last year, but if they're not dramatically better than where they were last year, I think you have to start feeling like, hey, we're cursed, and Mario just can't find the right defensive coordinator, because they've done about all they possibly can to go out there and make that defense. I don't know if they're going to be top 10 necessarily, but if you have a top 25 defense and then maybe a top 25 offense this year, I think they could end up having more success on the field.
Hey, so Donno, let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people are the offense is gonna look different because Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. But is it gonna be different because Carson Beck isn't as good, or is it going to be different because Carson Beck plays the position differently and it's going to probably take a little bit of time to for the team to find his sweet spot?
All the above. And also, it's going to look different because his weapons are a lot different from what Ward had. Something that Cam Ward had the benefit of last year was a more experienced receiver core. Now, Miami has a couple of experienced guys, but they brought him in as transfers, like C.J. Daniels and Keelan Marion and Tony Johnson, like the ones who were returning from last year. Jojo Trader, who I think has a potential to blow up this year, but he was a true freshman last year who didn't play a whole lot, but he's a former blue chip guy out of high school. Elijah Lofton, the tight end, is going to try to kind of do what Elijah Arroyo did last year. He's a different player. He's more of like a Swiss Army knife type of guy, but really productive. So I think, and again, like all the reasons you stated, I think are why the offense is going to look different. But then another one is it's Miami's offense. I don't believe is going to be nearly as pass heavy, but part of that I believe is going to come from assuming your defense is better. You're not going to be in shootouts every week, because that was a thing last year. And, Miami had the perfect shootout guy. It was like having Wild Bill Hickok or something in Cam Ward, because you spot that guy a 21-point deficit and say, Ward, we got to throw every down from here on out. Giddy up. Like he was built for that. But if you can actually play with some leads this year, you can get your running game a little bit more involved, because like Miami's running game last year, it was really good. But they didn't have the opportunity to reach their full potential, because I look there's a disconnect here, because Miami was number 6 in the country in yards per carry, but they were 31st overall in rushing. So like the yards per carry being almost top 5 didn't really match up with your overall running game not being in the top 25. And it's because they didn't have an opportunity to run the ball as much as they would like to. So I think that's going to be a part of it as well. And actually one of the transfers that I'm really excited about that Miami brought in is a running back who played at North Dakota State, Chamar Brown. Now, North Dakota State, I know it's in the FCS, but that's like the Alabama Crimson Tide of the FCS. They win the championship every year. And they had a guy drafted in the first round of the NFL this year. So it's a different level of FCS program. And this dude, Marty Brown, they call him Marty, had 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns last year. He helped them win the FCS national championship. So I think he's going to be great in a rotation with Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle. So I think Miami probably by design, and this is not to take anything away from Carson Beck, because he just wants to win in any context, but be able to run the football a little bit more. And, if your weapons like in the receiving game are not as dynamic as what Ward had last year, I think Miami can make up for some of that with the running game.
It's Alex Donno. Go check out the Locked On Canes podcast, as in-depth as you can get with your Miami Hurricanes. He bleeds orange and green. Donno, thanks so much for the time, man. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Go Panthers.